Welcome to FinTech Brews and News, brought to you by Central Payments and Falls FinTech. I'm Nikki Rohde.
And I'm Trent Sorby.
Founders, co-founders, payments professionals, and, well, just people who love brews. This is a place to get a behind-the-scenes look at unique partnerships and ways to bridge the financial gap between banking, startups, and the entire FinTech industry. Whether it's a beer or coffee or something else, there's certain to be a brew in every episode. After all, how do we function in this space without it? Each episode, you're sure to take away some good stuff going on in the financial technology space. So without further ado, let's grab a brew. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of FinTech Brews and News. I'm Nikki Rohde.
And I'm Trent Sorby.
And we have a special guest with us here today, good friend George Sider from Mastercard.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Welcome, George.
Thank you.
Very glad you're here. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself, what you do at Mastercard, and maybe some backdrop.
Sure. Yeah, so I've been with Mastercard for about 4 years. I am the Vice President of Account Management, and my team is responsible for our U.S. program manager relationships. Been in the payment space since 2008. Launched a gift card program. A couple months later, they said, have you ever done anything in prepaid or debit? I said, no. And they said, well, now you're going to run North America. So that was fun.
Look at that.
Did some work in the UK, been in that space for about 10 years. And then Mastercard came calling in about 2018.
That's something. Isn't it crazy when you look at 2008 to where we're at today in 2021? So incredibly much has changed in
Absolutely.
that short order.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. It was, back then you were just happy that the mag stripe worked and that, you could get card plastic produced and you got a network logo on the front of the card and you were good to go. And now that's just the basic entry now. So.
Table stakes for
Absolutely.
sure. Yeah. What's going on with Mastercard? What are some of the things that you guys are working on? What's new? What's emerging?
Yeah, so trying to keep up with all of our acquisitions, that's always fun, but it's a great opportunity. We've always made some really strong acquisitions. More recently, acquired a company called Ekata that is more in the ID verification space, more on the digital side. And also Finicity, which is a big one for us in the open banking space. So we're doing a lot in open banking these days, trying to help our partners in the open banking space. It's really complemented our suite of offerings and really helped to kind of round out what we can do to be a strategic partner.
Do you think that acquisition around Finicity is really Mastercard seeing where we're going in the U.S. around open banking and just sort of seeing the future and knowing that you have to be there just like we have to be there?
Absolutely, Trent. I think it's, we looked at what open banking has meant to Europe and a lot of other international areas and said, we have to get there in the U.S. The U.S. has to kind of catch up, whether it's EMV and contactless or open banking. The U.S. is usually a few steps behind there. And I think, we looked at companies like Plaid and Finicity and said, who is the right partner for us? And because of the consumer permission data approach that Finicity takes, it made a lot of sense for us to acquire them. So it's been a great acquisition. They've integrated well, and it really complements what we bring to our customers.
And I think that goes to show, let's rewind again to 2008. As long as the MAG works, you think about Mastercard and you think about the card brand network, the end. But now, and maybe even back then, but unbeknownst to a lot of people, but now Mastercard is so much more. It's not just a card network. You've got all these different partners and players and really an embedded solution that helps fast forward people to the industry, which in my mind's eye is exactly where we fit in strategically so well with you guys. So talk about the introduction, the first time that you even met Trent and I, maybe at Money 2020 in Vegas a couple of years ago, and what was that like?
Absolutely. So my first introduction to your ecosystem was probably back in 18 after I joined, and my predecessor was trying to explain to me what you guys did. And he's like, look, they're not just an issuer. They're based in Sioux Falls, but they're also a program manager. And I was like, oh, that's really unique. In the 10 years I've been in the space, I haven't seen someone do both. And he's like, oh, and by the way, they run a fintech accelerator. I'm like, really? So tell me more. And at the time, I wasn't actually responsible for the relationship, but within, I want to say, 6 or 8 months, I was approached and basically said, look, we're going to give you a larger remit, and part of that is the central payments relationship. And it was, we were kind of figuring out who was going to manage what. And I said, no, I definitely want that because I've never seen anything like it.
Plus, you love Sioux Falls.
Absolutely.
I mean,
it's my third trip this year.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. You're a regular.
I am. Yeah, but it was the opportunity to work with such a unique partner, I think, that really drew me to the relationship and wanted me to, I wanted to find out more.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way we look at all of our network relationships is, we're always trying to understand all the things we can tap into there that, to really augment our business. And I think Mastercard, you're a great example of, like Nikki said, you think about the card brand, you think about acceptance at the point of sale, but it's a lot deeper than that. Mm-hmm. And, we love calling you up and saying, hey, George, here's what we're trying to solve for. Can Mastercard help here, here, or here? And inevitably you're like, oh yeah, we've got assets here that do this and assets here that do this, and we can help you on this and this and this. So, I mean, the collaboration we have with Mastercard is incredibly valuable for us.
No, we love to hear that. I think that, historically it's always been about leveraging our rails and acceptance, but Mastercard has put a huge emphasis over the last 10 years. Ajay really led that charge to say we are much more than just a payment network. And a lot of that has been, how do we work with our partners and embed our assets? So we're working with you directly on send integration right now for disbursements. We're looking at bill pay solutions. We're looking to kind of build out this whole Money Connects solution so that you can bring that to your partners and enhance your platform. And what is so great is we can come to you and say, what do you need to enhance your platform? Here are the assets we can bring to bear. And it's always a really fun conversation, and we keep Eric and the team very busy.
Well, and I think the value add too is the more places we can go, the fewer places we actually can go to get all the services we need, the easier it is for us to stay as vertically integrated as possible.
Yeah.
And you're right, as we think about the way money moves today, I've always said, like, we're not in a position to try to guess what the consumer wants. We know we have to come to the table with really every form of money movement consumers might find attractive and be prepared to offer that. Yep. And the more we tap into what's available at Mastercard, it's incredibly beneficial for us.
Yeah, no, it's been a fantastic partnership, and it's been one where, we can basically look at your needs, look at what your customers are looking for, and then help you deliver on that. So it's been an incredible, synergistic partnership where we can say, yes, we can actually help you there, and here's how.
Something that was new to me about 2 years ago is the data and services arm of Mastercard. I don't think a lot of people know what that is or about the services that you guys offer. Would you give a little bit more information about that?
Yeah, when people ask me about that, the best way I can describe it is it's really an internal consultancy within Mastercard. And it started out as more traditional consultancy. When I was actually on the customer side, and when I say customer side, I was a network customer, I started working with Mastercard as a customer back in 2012, 2013. And one of the first things I got exposed to was what we called back then advisors, and is now called data and services. And we were looking to launch an EMV and contactless prepaid card in Canada, and then about a year later in the US, which was kind of ahead of its time back then. And we were really reluctant to do it because of the costs and the associated, I would say, just, experiment that it was going to be. We just weren't sure if we were ready for it. And we did an exhaustive engagement with the advisors group, 6 months around, what is the ROI? What does the customer expect in a payment device? Yeah. And, will this resonate enough to justify the investment? And we came out of that feeling very confident, and we went ahead and subsequently launched EMV and contactless in Canada, and then did it a year later in the US, and it was the right thing to do, but we made an informed decision. And so what data and services has evolved into is helping our customers make informed decisions, whether it's a market landscape, a competitive landscape, understanding their value proposition, or trying to figure out, the evolution of their company strategically. So there's a lot that we can offer there.
When we met going back to 2018, and it was the very following year in 19 that we started to really explore the accelerator idea. Mm-hmm. And that came to be very, very quickly. So one of the first things we thought of is, okay, this is going to be quite the undertaking. We've got our why, we want to do this, but how we're going to do this is going to be a little bit more challenging. And so it was a no-brainer for us to go, who would join forces with us, who would help put legs under this, not only from kind of a sponsorship standpoint, but also, and very meaningfully, a content standpoint. And so you've always been a huge champion of what we're doing here at Falls FinTech. Why was Mastercard saying yes to being at the table with Falls FinTech an important move for you?
I think it was an incredibly important move. We have a program called StartPath where we do support, I would say fairly mature startups kind of internationally. I think obviously the pandemic changed a lot of our approach to StartPath, but we've had a labs team that is focused on innovation and the FinTech community. And so I thought we were really well suited to support you there. And again, I just go back to the ecosystem that you guys created and saying, we looked at that and said, this is an issuer that is also a program manager that has a FinTech accelerator. Like, we have to be involved in that. And we want to sponsor and we want to be actively involved. And so I think, when I speak to customers in the industry, and I speak to a lot of them, you guys come up a lot. And I mean a lot. And it is because the uniqueness of the offering, but also the ability to say to a customer, we can offer you a fully baked solution, essentially, without you having to go to different partners in the ecosystem and manage different relationships. It's all here. And so not only, I always tell people, not only do they have a really strong professional team, but they've got essentially for lack of a better term, a minor league team or a development team that is coming up through Falls FinTech, where we can get access to these startups before they become, wildly successful and larger companies. And it's great to establish those relationships so early on.
Which is exactly the bet that we made, right?
Yeah, I mean, you took the words out of my mouth. I mean, we're trying,
because, let's be honest.
We're trying to solve for the same challenge, I think, in many respects. We see opportunity and we see cutting edge ways in which people are solving for payments challenges. And the challenge we had, and I'm going to guess the same challenge Mastercard has, is, okay, are they ready yet? Where can we put them to sort of bring them up through? Because we're so excited about the problem they're solving.
That's right.
It just takes a little time. And where can we put them where they have an opportunity to learn and they have an opportunity to continue to mature as a company and grow out their business, test ideas. And that's the beauty. When we reached out to Mastercard right away and we said, hey, we think we're going to do this and we'd love to have you involved, I think it was just really because I think you were trying to solve for the same challenges we were.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think one of the hardest things is where you place your bets, right? And I think for us, it's, we had developed a system that, we identified kind of a criteria for what we were looking for. And I think you guys went through that as well, is what you're looking for and what necessarily doesn't make sense for, what you're trying to develop. And one of the things I enjoy more than anything is, and it's one of the big reasons I've, other than, always spending time with you guys, but the 3 times I've been here, it's about sitting down with these startups and just going through their experience and the roller coaster and working on their pitches and all the things that they're learning and how you guys help them. It's kind of watching it live. It's almost like being behind the glass and just watching an experiment. And it's fascinating to me because they put all their passion and their heart into it, and they've got some really amazing ideas.
One thing I keep hearing from founders time and time again is how fragmented the United States payment systems are, in the spirit of finding all the different roles and people and where do they start. Some people call Mastercard and say, hey, I've got a really great idea. I want to do this app and move some money in one way or the other. And Mastercard will say, great, try this angle. Or they used to call us back in the day, we're like, yeah, I love what you're doing, but you're just too early. Or they call a processor, or they talk to, a local congressman or whomever, whatever angle they want to take. And what I constantly hear is breaking through to get to the right somebody is incredibly challenging and time consuming. And so it's really great to be able to have everything be that point of entry and really kind of lift up the hood and say, here's the access that you need, so to speak. And Mastercard's a critical part of that because your offering is so strong. So,
yeah, I think what we try to bring to the table is just some insights and some expertise that, to your point, they would have a really hard time finding on their own. And through our partnership, we like to come to them and say, here are some of the things that we want to make sure you're aware of. Here are some of the assets you should be thinking about that you can leverage through our collective partnership. And it's also nice that, you guys do such a good job of kind of helping them refine and polish their approach to the point where, I watched some of these startups when they come through in week 1 and then by demo day, they've come such a long way. And it makes our job easier because then we can sell them internally as a partner as well through the relationship we have with Central Payments and Falls FinTech.
They look at access to you and the rest of the folks at Mastercard is so critically important, and the timing couldn't be better because they're thinking, it's not a big lump of clay. I think I say that once in a while. They have some ideas, but it takes a little more maturity and a little more thought and a little more consideration and having access to experts, because it's not just George they deal with.
That's right.
Tell them about all the folks from Mastercard that spend time with the cohort.
Well, I think honestly, George mentioned labs, and that one pops to mind because once again, another arm of Mastercard that I didn't know anything about. Labs as a service. John Quinn kind of heads that up, at least he does for us. And he flew from Dublin, Ireland to Sioux Falls, South Dakota to spend time with this cohort to whiteboard together and walk through product market fit, business model canvassing, a live interactive workshop to be able to take this lump of clay and go, all right, so now you have your ideal customer profile. How is that actually going to manifest itself in the market? And I'll tell you, George, that absolutely is always a top hitter when we kind of look at the best sessions of the cohort. And so that was remarkable. In addition, data and services, they have everything from cybersecurity to different compliance avenues, performas, financial management expertise. And these people just carve out literal office hours to talk one-on-one with the companies and also do formal presentations that say, here's what you need to know. This is why this is important. And so Falls FinTech has always had this tagline from the genesis of real substance, real connections, and real opportunity. And you guys are so critical in that substance part because your experts really are just that. They bring so much value and expertise to the table.
Yeah, no, we appreciate that. And I would, again, with the unique view of having been a customer before joining MasterCard, I had the same reaction, was that I can't believe I get access to so many different experts within the payment space. And I didn't realize before joining, or as when I was a customer, how many different assets they had available. And one of the things that I love talking about is our cyber and intelligence solutions. We not only can we help you, with that transaction, but to secure that transaction, which as everything moves digital has become so important. We've got solutions like New Data where it's literally, reading your biometrics as you interact with your device to make sure you are who you say you are. And then we've got standard tools like Fraud Rules Manager that helps people to manage or companies to manage their ICAs and their bins to make sure that they're, looking for, bin attacks or any kind of external threats. So we try to bring as much to the table kind of beyond just the rails.
And I think one of the things that lends so nicely is that when those services come from Mastercard and it comes behind that brand, one of the things everybody struggles with in this space is getting consumers comfortable with the degree of information that now is flowing around out there. For them to feel comfortable that, hey, it's coming behind the brand, it's coming behind the logo, it makes our job so much easier when they say, yeah, it's part of what I'm doing to facilitate transaction, and I see Mastercard and I'm comfortable at that point. And trust is so important.
It is. When you talked about these founders and kind of learning a lot and this experiment, if you will, of people watching from behind the scenes, people often will ask, what's the next thing? What's cutting edge? What's coming up? And, you can read articles for days and you can get different opinions from very smart people who are watching trends. But
I thought you said Trent.
Not no, nobody's watching Trent. Gosh.
You can learn a lot from watching Trent.
Drink your coffee. But the truth is on the Falls FinTech side is we don't know exactly what's next. And that's why we've opted to keep our verticals wide open and let the market pitch to us every time we accept applications. It's less about, hey, we're looking for someone to solve X problem. Because we think that creates some kind of an unintentional myopia where we carve out what we don't know is around the corner. And so Falls FinTech's been really fun to look for people that are solving real pain points. Some of them are what you would think of as legacy things, just using technology in a new way to solve that same pain point.
I was saying this yesterday. We learn things. We're bringing companies in because we want to learn from them. There are new things in payments that, somebody that's been around as long as Nikki has.
Easy.
There are new things in payments all the time that we need to learn. And sometimes you can't just jump into something and bring it to market. You have to kind of understand it better. And so I always talk about some of the companies that come through because we put them in there because we wanted to learn from them at the same time.
Sure.
And Mastercard's a great example of, we'll call George all the time and say, what are you seeing around this? What are you seeing around this? Because we're always trying to stay one step ahead. And that's just one of the many benefits.
Yeah, there's definitely a multi-pronged approach to kind of, again, why Falls FinTech is such an important strategic initiative for us. But that's absolutely one of them.
So George, in light of that, what are you seeing out there that, not only, of course, I'll find interesting, and so will Nikki, but the whole audience, what's the next thing that Mastercard sees like, okay, we have to be prepared for this, whatever this happens to be?
Yeah, so it's a great segue to where we're putting a ton of focus right now, which is what we're calling our MultiRail strategy. So I think that over the last 3 years, we've come to the realization that it's the payments industry, the technology industry is evolving so quickly that it's much more than just cards. And so we're working actively on how we can, move money easier for consumers and for cardholders. And a lot of that is through Send, through enhancements that we've made through acquisitions, to take ACH to the next level where they've kind of already done in Europe and we're trying to replicate now in the US. So a big part of the future of Mastercard strategy is around multi-rail. It's not just the card payment rails. It's now through enhancing ACH, doing things more real time to move those funds, and figuring out a way to fit into that ecosystem. We always have this conversation, do we partner, do we build, or do we buy, right? And I think every company does that. But for us, it's been, what can we do to partner? That seems like it's always kind of the first thing we want to do. And if we want to build it ourselves, that's great, or build it with a partner, or do we just make an acquisition because we don't have the capability in-house? But if you hear from our CEO, Michael Meeback, all he wants to talk about these days, which is great, is multi-rail strategy and what it means for the future of Mastercard.
And you know what? That is, I will echo that. If we look at our mantra around here is technology, charter, and choice. And as we think about the technology aspect, I was speaking at a conference earlier this week, and I said, look, I don't know which one of these rails is going to survive long term. Right. What I do know is I need to access all of them. Whether I own the rail, I'm leasing the rail, I'm borrowing the rail, I just know I have to have as many rails as possible because I don't know what consumer is going to want. And I think that's where this whole thing is heading long term. Is really understanding what our multi-rail strategy is.
Yeah, and we've learned a lot from you, as a partner, because you're doing your own one-to-many approach where you're bringing in all these new customers and figuring out how to support them. And so a lot of our learnings and where we want to put our resources are based on the demand that you get from your customers, and that translates to us where we say, okay, we were talking about maybe 1 or 2 use cases for Send as an example, like 10 months ago, and now I think we're up to like 5 or 7 at this point. We've implemented 3 already, and we're on to the next few use cases. But every time we talk to Gretel and the folks and Eric on the ops side, it's like, well, great that we've got these integrated. We've got 3 more new use cases, based on these customer needs, and it really, one, it keeps us moving in the right direction with you as a partner, but 2, it brings that sense of urgency around how we can support.
And it just changes so rapidly. That's the thing that when I think about partner, build, or buy, I feel like a few years ago it was always build. Yeah. Always build whenever you can. And partner next and buy if you have to. And now it seems to shuffle around a little bit where it's partner first. Technology is moving so fast, and people have, I think last number I saw was 5,286 new fintechs popped up last year in the United States. No, true. I mean, they do say that 96...
You were just thinking 5,286?
No, I put in a presentation.
When it's that precise, yeah, I believed it.
It's
I was
bananas.
like, that's right on.
Yeah, so thank you. Drink your coffee. But it's wild how many new fintechs pop up. And so something we're doing on the Falls FinTech side of the house is not just scaling back to 10 companies a year, but really looking at opportunities that allow us to serve more, because we don't want to miss out on opportunities, but we obviously don't have the capacity to serve all of them or many of them. But there's so many new ones, and technology is just moving like crazy.
And I think APIs have changed a lot as well. It enhances that partner aspect or that approach, because it's essentially like, look, it's just an API call, right? So if you can leverage those APIs, then it's not about building something. It's about leveraging what you already have and partnering with someone that says, okay, we can work on that together quickly versus trying to build out something brand new. So I think that's really changed the game.
For us, we think about our API strategy, and if you can't build it in a weekend, we've made it too complex. Like everything we do is like, can you do that in a weekend? Yep, with talented people, you could code to that in a weekend. Perfect. That works for us then.
Yeah. It's become, and it's funny you said the weekend, because I feel like even a couple of years ago, it was like this 2-week challenge. Yeah, we can iterate in 2 weeks. We can stand that up in 2 weeks. And it's like down to a weekend, it seems like. So it's really moved.
One of the things that we spend a lot of time talking about fintechs and new ideas, but one of the things I've been really focused on lately is how can we embed financial services inside of established companies that are thinking about, okay, my core product isn't a financial product. It is, some other tangible good, but I need a way to embed a payment solution inside of that. And I think one of the things that really excites me is the way in which companies that you don't think of as a financial services company, but they realize that, look, I have a great connection with a consumer, so I should be driving some sort of financial product, either to facilitate the sale of my product or because I think this consumer, I've built up so much loyalty with this consumer, I think that they're really going to be interested in a financial product from me. So we spend a lot of time talking about the next new thing, but what also, and I don't think we should lose sight of it, is like the new things that are happening inside of non-financial companies. To me, that's really exciting right now.
It's been such a big part of our growth over the last few years. You think about how many financial institutions or traditional processors and folks in the payment space you can work with. And after a while, it sounds funny, but you've kind of tapped into a good majority of them. I think what we've seen more recently is, when we launched the Apple Card, it was a direct partnership with Goldman where, that's not their lane, but essentially they said, we want to operate in that lane. We know we can, and we help them get there. And I think it's the same with what you're probably seeing in your BD pipeline is that you're now getting these companies that are not necessarily in the payment space, but they've got a brand. Look at Ceridian as an example. They've been a leader in the payroll space. And they've said, you know what, we know we can do a lot with a card program. And they're obviously demonstrating that, post-launch. But that's a perfect example where they come and say, look, not our area of expertise, but we want to play in that space and we know we'll be successful and we can help them get there.
And you're pulling that thread one step further. And let's just take the Ceridian example. When they came to us, they said, look, we need a financial product. It makes sense for us to have a financial product, but the last thing we want to do is go put all the pieces and the parts together, right? So they came to us and said, look, I really am looking for that sort of one-stop shop, if you will. And that's why that partnership works so well. And that's why we're trying to always emulate more of those, because these big companies, they don't desire to be a program manager in many cases.
Or even a payments company.
Right, exactly. Yeah. They want to focus on their core business, whatever that happens to be, but they need a financial product, and they don't want to have to put all the pieces and the parts together all the time.
That's right.
They've got this powerful brand that they know will resonate. They just don't know how to get there from a payments perspective, and they look to us to say, how do we work together to get there?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I absolutely loved this conversation. Very, very good, fruitful to kind of navigate all the different things that you guys are doing and how it works strategically with us. So, George, thank you so much for your insights.
And thank you for your support, too. I mean, Mastercard is so important to our growth, and we couldn't ask for a better relationship.
No, we really appreciate that. We love the partnership. We love working with you guys. I think we've developed such a good relationship over the last few years. Again, I'll say it just because it's such a unique ecosystem that you've created, and we're just very proud to be a part of it.
Again, George, thank you so much for your time joining us here at FinTech Brews. For those of you that may be just watching this for the first time, go out to our socials, download the podcast, and enjoy this conversation we have with folks like George from Mastercard. So thank you again. Until next time.
There you have it. We hope you enjoyed this episode of FinTech Brews and News. Keep up with all the content and cool stuff happening at Falls FinTech and Central Payments by checking out our website, our YouTube channel, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss out on our next episode.
I'm Nikki Rohde.
And I'm Trent Sorby. See you next time.
Cheers.